An ordinary delivery boy unknowingly carried a plan to assassinate the president, and now he's the only witness. In the dusty streets of Ouagadougou, 13-year-old courier Amadou was pedaling through the morning light. His glasses sat crooked on his face, one side cracked but still usable. His mother had told him they couldn't afford new ones yet. Like every other day, he checked his backpack, a few envelopes, a box of medicine, and a small, seemingly unremarkable USB stick. But this day was different. The delivery address led him to a sleek, high-rise office building downtown. As he reached the door, two men stepped forward at the same time. Both said, "Hand it to me." One wore a suit, hair slicked back with gel. The other looked scruffy, but had a strange glint in his eyes. Amadou hesitated for a second, then handed over the envelope. To which one? That's where the uncertainty begins. 3 hours later, the nation's intelligence unit discovered the contents of that envelope, a high-level assassination plan targeting President Traoré, coordinates, trigger times, code names, and encrypted files. And from that moment on, one forgotten detail in the mind of a delivery boy would decide the fate of an entire country. That night, Amadou was taken into protective custody by plainclothes officers. His eyes were wide with shock. They asked him the one question everyone wanted answered. "Do you remember who you gave the envelope to?" He looked down. He didn't remember, or maybe not yet. But one detail stuck with him. One of the men had winked. The other, no watch on his wrist. And the tiny difference marked the beginning of something enormous. The most dangerous part? The real culprits were still out there, and they might already be watching him. When Amadou was placed in a secret government facility, he was just a frightened child. Surrounded by unfamiliar faces, everyone wanted only one thing from him. Which man did you give the envelope to? But sometimes the mind hides its most crucial secrets in its darkest corners. When Amadou closed his eyes, faces blurred together, voices overlapped, even the sound of the wind merged into chaos. Nothing was clear. Psychologists and memory specialists came in shifts. They showed him sketches, played audio recordings, recreated building entrances with miniature models. Sometimes Amadou would squint and whisper, "One of them winked at me." Other times he'd murmur, "The other wasn't wearing a watch." But none of these clues turned into a name. President Traoré was monitoring the case closely. "This boy holds the key to our future," he told his advisors. But time was slipping away. The man in Amadou's memory was still out there, and unfortunately, the boy's silence was making some people very nervous. Then, one night, something chilling happened. The security cameras outside Amadou's room went dark. For exactly 6 seconds, no one seemed to have entered. Yet, in the morning, a small red slip of paper was discovered under Amadou's pillow. It had only 3 words. "Stay silent. Live." Was it a threat or a warning? The security team went on high alert. There could be a mole on the inside. President Traoré ordered an immediate internal investigation. For the first time, Amadou shivered. Not because of fear, but because he now understood he wasn't just a witness anymore. He was a target. That night, a fragment of memory rose from the depths of his mind. A still image, like a forgotten photo. A blue car parked behind the man, and that detail was the first sliver of light in the darkness. That one small detail Amadou remembered, a blue car, reshaped the entire national intelligence map. Every traffic camera in the city was analyzed. Footage from the time and location of the delivery was examined. 7 blue cars were spotted parked outside the building. 6 were clean, but one had a fake license plate. That revelation exposed the true scale of the threat. The assassination plan wasn't just coming from the outside. Someone on the inside was helping. President Traoré took full control at this point. He assembled a handpicked security team and ordered Amadou to be moved to a more secure, undisclosed location. But even there, something unexpected happened. As they passed through the security gate of the new safe house, one of the guards gave a strange facial gesture, a subtle raise of his eyebrows and a flick of the eyes. Amadou froze. His eyes widened. That gesture, it wasn't random. The man who had taken the envelope that day had done the exact same thing. It wasn't just a quirk. It was a signal, Later that night, someone entered Amadou's room without a sound. All hallway cameras had mysteriously gone offline, but Amadou was awake. He still kept the threatening note hidden beneath his pillow. This time there was new writing on the back. "If you talk, your mother dies." Not the president. Amadou's body tensed. This was no longer just about national security. His own family was now in danger. But as fear crept in, another piece of the puzzle lit up in his mind. On the day of the delivery, behind the man and the car, was a logo. A word painted in yellow on a storefront window. Soleil, French for sun. A business name, perhaps. At sunrise, Amadou didn't say a word to anyone. He simply passed a note to the president's security aide. "Check the Soleil building. That's where it all began." Once again, the fragile memory of a young boy had shifted the course of an entire nation. Soleil. That single word triggered an intensive scan through hundreds of intelligence files. Eventually, a match surfaced. Soleil Group, a company claiming to specialize in tourism consultancy, but its registered owner had past links to several European intelligence operations. Even more alarming, the company's office was directly across from the National Square, where President Traoré was scheduled to give a major speech in just a few days. Was that the intended vantage point? The president refused to cancel his appearance. Backing down would only reward the assassin with fear. But the security protocol was completely overhauled. Meanwhile, Amadou retraced his original delivery route, accompanied by a female intelligence officer. They walked street by street, step by step, analyzing every building and corner. Then suddenly, Amadou stopped cold. "This is it," he whispered, trembling. "This is where I gave the envelope." The team stormed the building. Inside, it was eerily empty. No desks, no furniture, only dust. And beneath a flickering ceiling light, one object remained, a worn-out cell phone. The device was dead, but the memory card was intact. Analysts recovered the data. The final video was timestamped just 48 hours prior. On screen, a man on a rooftop, peering through binoculars, zeroing in on a single point, the podium where Traoré would stand. Amadou held his breath. The video only lasted seconds, but it was enough. The man's face wasn't clear, but something about him stood out. The sleeve of his jacket. There was no watch. The team went on full alert. This wasn't a theory anymore. The plan was real. The countdown had begun. Now the fate of a nation rested in the hands of a young boy. And one final clue that could stop everything if they moved fast enough. The presidential square was as crowded as ever. Thousands had gathered to hear President Traoré speak. The stage was ready. Security was at its peak. But it wasn't just weapons that were on edge. Every breath, every heartbeat waited in suspense, because no one knew exactly where or when the threat would strike. At exactly 2 p.m., Traoré stepped up to the microphone. Applause erupted as he began to speak. At that very moment, Amadou and the Special Operations team reached the Soleil building. The elevator was out of order. They sprinted up the stairs, 3 steps at a time. The rooftop door was locked. The female agent quietly picked it with a small device. And then, movement in the shadows. A man crouched with a sniper rifle, finger on the trigger. He had already disabled the cameras. The countdown was seconds away from ending. But then, a voice echoed through the rooftop. "You had no watch. It's you." It was Amadou. He stood in the doorway, fear in his eyes, but his voice steady. The sniper hesitated for a fraction of a second. That was all the agent needed. In one swift move, she disarmed and subdued the target. A nation was saved by a single second. As the president continued his speech, no one in the cheering crowd knew what had just been prevented. That night, Traoré stood on his balcony, a folded note in his hand, written by Amadou. He whispered to the stars, "What began as a simple delivery saved an entire nation." Amadou was no longer just a delivery boy. He had become an unforgettable witness, an unnamed hero, and a child whose courage had protected millions. But one question still haunted the silence. The second file on the USB was still missing, and in that file were not just plans of assassination, but footage of a betrayal that could shake the very foundations of the state. This story may be over, but in the shadows, truth always leaves a trace.